How's it going, guys, and welcome to the showdown between the Dwarfs, led by the Slayer King, and the Dinobots, who are going to be led by a Saurus Oldblood. So let's jump right into this match, guys, and satisfy the grudge. So in the front line, I do have a very heavy core of Longbeards, and I actually think they're really good in this matchup. Firstly, they have 100 armor, so against Saurus Warriors and Skink cohorts, they're going to be very durable due to the lack of armor piercing on those two units, and on top of that, they're also immune to psychology, which is so good. So a lot of the units on the dinosaurs, even like just the regular Bastillodon with the Revivification Crystal, causes Fear and Terror. Krokar causes Fear and Terror. Jabba the Hutt on Zlok also does. So there's a ton of units that do, kind of have the potential of mass terror routing your troops. So having a couple of groups in the infantry in the front line that are immune to psychology is really nice. In the center, I do have not the Grumbling Guard, but the Norgrimling's Iron Breakers, and these guys are absolute beasts. And they're just going to hold all day, which is really, really important in this matchup because you want your back line to be relatively preserved. Because, you're not expecting your Norgrimling's Iron Breakers and your Longbeards to really take out the big dinosaurs, but what is going to take them out is a bunch of powder weapons. So in the back, I actually do have a group of Iron Drakes right here with the Trollhammer Torpedoes with their anti-large and armor-piercing missiles, which basically just annihilate the dinosaurs. But my opponent, I actually like his build quite a bit. He went much wider, which I think is one of the better ways to beat the DAWI. You can see he brought a Saurus Oldblood, and I think he's just riding on a cold one, so he didn't spend like, 2600 on a Krokar, or, 2800 on Zlok. So he's definitely going wider, and it's not going to kind of mitigate the effectiveness of my Iron Drakes. Granted, he still does have some good targets. You can see he does have some Cold One Riders who are armored and large. And then, of course, the Saurus Oldblood here still is large and armored, but again, it's not as good of a target as like Krokar. I do have a group of Thunders. I also have two Bolt Throwers. So Bolt Throwers I found to be really, really effective against the dinosaurs. So these guys are just like the masters of focusing down like large bulky targets over, a sustained period of time. So basically like it's a great hard counter against a Bastillodon with the Revivification Crystal or the Laser Lizard. And it's even pretty good at like poking at Krokar for most of the game. So I really, really like these actually in this matchup. I haven't really found other matchups in which I like the Bolt Throwers, but I think they really shine here. So I also think I have an Organ Gun. Of course, what DAWI matchup would be complete without the mighty Organ Gun, which has gotten some massive buffs in Mortal Empires. You guys can see the range is now 300, definitely solid. In the flanks, I have two Miners protecting my flanks, and of course my opponent does have a couple Chameleon Skinks, which in my opinion are a very good kind of counter to Slayers. So Slayers are often used to protect the back line against pretty much everyone. And the Skinks are faster than them, they can poison, and they do really well against the zero armor of these Slayers. So I definitely like that choice for my opponent. We'll see how he's able to use them. A couple groups of Thanes with the Tormentor Swords. I do also have Ungrim Iron Fist, the Slayer King, and he's actually pretty good here as well. I mean, he's not going to terror out. I mean, he's going to fight to the bitter end. He's very tanky, and honestly, he's an extremely strong duelist. Now, I think he does lose to Krokar one-on-one, but he puts up a great fight and does a ton of damage for his cost. So for my opponent, he's got a couple groups of Chameleon Skinks. I think he has one here and one on the far side, or maybe it's just this one group. He also has a couple groups of Cav, so definitely a good choice. These are the Cold One Riders, and they're really solid. If he can like bait out my Tormentor Sword with something small, like maybe send in these Feral Cold Ones and bait my Tormentor Sword, then the Cold One Riders can just run shop. Really good armor piercing values on both of these units. In the front line, he does have Saurus Warriors. I think he has one group of Temple Guard in the middle, which I didn't realize until it was too late. And then on the far side, he does also have a couple Cold One Riders and Feral. Yeah, so symmetrical on both sides. He does have Cold One Riders and Feral Cold Ones. He has a Revivification Crystal. And you can see my opponent was making a pretty big effort to not go wide, or not to go narrow, because going narrow against the DAWI is very risky now, because again, they can isolate with the Tormentor Sword and just gun you down with powder. So you can see the bolts coming in here and just slamming into this dino, and look at the damage. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot right now, but it really adds up. So guys, without further ado, let's get the show on the road. So you can see my opponent over on the flanks is going to be kind of skirmishing with some of these Chameleons, and honestly, I'm just using Miners to block them up. I mean, I know the Miners are not going to be able to catch or kill them, but I figured, hey, it's better than kind of allocating a group of Slayers to chase those guys down. So look at the damage on this Bastillodon. So far, that's amazing. That's an 1,100 gold investment, and it's definitely paying off so far. So it looks like my opponent is going to be pulling back. His front line is going to be engaging right into these blasting charges from the Norgrimling's Iron Breakers. You can see my Thunders are getting in position as well, so there's going to be a ton of fire coming down right here, and they're almost in range. So I'm also pulling back my Longbeards to get a little bit of a tactical positioning there, and you can see the blasting charge is going to do huge damage against Saurus Warriors for sure. So it looks like they did like a partial throw. Maybe the rest of them will throw right now. You can see the Iron Drakes with the Trollhammer Torpedoes are coming in here, and it's doing some pretty massive damage to these Saurus Warriors. And the Longbeards on the far side are going to engage, but I'm doing a bit of a, I guess, defensive geometry, you could call it, as I know everyone likes to kind of talk about the DAWI. So I do have a couple forces kind of spread out, and my opponent is going to be able to get through. Hopefully the AI will get caught up on the edge of these Norgrimlings, but I'm going to have to kite back. My troops in the front are really holding. I mean, the Norgrimling's Iron Breakers are going to take like no damage. You can see the Slayer King is just going to be karate chopping these guys just with his huge axe. My Miners on the far side are going to be taking the brunt of the charge from all these armor-piercing troops, which is really rough. But my Thunders are going to be kind of getting in position, and you can see my Slayers in the back will be engaging now. So a lot of pressure on my back line, though. Over here, my Organ Gun was able to just massacre these Cold One Riders. It just takes out Cav so incredibly fast, and I do intercept with the Dragonback Slayers. Over here, I'm trying to get my paws on him. You can see, basically, for the Tormentor Sword to work, it needs to be kind of in the circle radius of the center mass of these units. So unfortunately, all these Jurassic Park dinosaurs are going to get into my back line and start tearing me up. But I do have a pretty big kind of goon squad chasing. And once I get my Thane, like, in the center mass, or the effect area of the Tormentor Sword in the center mass of the flag of the Cold One Riders, I can pretty much just cut them to pieces. So Ungrim should be able to hold here in the front line. He's obviously still just chopping up these lizards. And if his Saurus Old Blood does end up coming in here, and it looks, I actually think he did. I'm sorry I didn't get to show you guys, but the Saurus Old Blood tried to fight Ungrim for a moment, and man, that was not good. But the Slayers got their karate. Oh, look at that guy go down. So it looks like one of the Slayers was able to chop him down. And the dinosaurs have absolutely no chance against the Slayers. Slayers have anti-large, and they don't have armor piercing, but that bonus is going to be really nice against Feral Cold Ones. Although, Feral Cold Ones actually have 90 armor, which is pretty huge. But nonetheless, the Slayer should be able to get through them pretty quickly. And you can see he's just collapsing and trying to get into my center pocket, shut down my Thunders, which is a really good choice. But now I'm going to be able to get that Tormentor Sword in just a moment, which is going to be huge. My Bolt Throwers are still online. I was able to kind of defend them in the back. He is going after my, Iron Drakes really aggressively. So I'm going to probably have to yield some areas of the battlefield. But those Bolt Throwers basically just destroyed that Revivification Crystal. And also, his Lord did take a ton of damage from that Saurus Old Blood, and the Norgrimling's Iron Breakers are just taking no damage. I mean, they've lost a couple models, but they've been rear charged by Cold One Riders, by Feral Cold Ones. They've been taking, frontal damage from the Temple Guard, which are, pretty good armor-piercing units. And there's the Tormentor Sword. So I finally got the timing on it, and you can see all these Cold One Riders are just going to be chopped down and just massacred by these Slayers, which is such an awesome sight. And finally, my Thunders, since I was able to get that Tormentor Sword off, are going to be able to get back online. So I'm trying to get a line of sight on the Saurus Old Blood, who's just getting point-blank shot by these Bolt Throwers. And the Bolt Throwers just seem to be so effective in this matchup. Because the DAWI infantry can honestly do really good against the Dino infantry. You just have too much armor, and Saurus Warriors, Temple Guard, are a halberd unit technically, so they're not going to be really good in the front. I mean, they'll be okay in the front line. I definitely bring them myself when I play this matchup, but they're not going to be as good as like a traditional great weapon unit. So the DAWI definitely have the infantry advantage, but the Dinos have mass, they have good mobility. So, if you're able to shut down the mobility with the Tormentor Swords, you're going to be in good shape. So you can see the Organ Gun is now shooting from the hill, and the Bolt Throwers are point blank shooting just right here, and then Ungrim's coming in, and Ungrim hits like a truck. So you can see the Slayer King is able to push back the Saurus Old Blood, who's steady, and now he's going to be kind of almost routing off here. He's at 20 leadership. Looks like he's going to be going back in the front line. In the meanwhile, the Thane is holding it down in the front, supporting the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers. Man, they're just MVPs. These guys still have 69 models, that's what she said. Doing a really, really good job. And honestly, the Temple Guard are taking a bit of damage as well. Looks like my opponent did pop a buff, the Horn of Krygor, which gives charge bonus and 25 melee attack. That's actually not bad. But yeah, the backline's in okay shape. I have a couple Bolt Throwers online. My Thunders are pretty much routed off. But my Trollhammer Torpedoes, I was able to kind of salvage them, and they're actually really durable against the Dinos. The only thing that can really punish them are like Cold One Riders or Croc R, or, big armor-piercing threats, because they do have 125 armor. So you can see my Miners should be able to fend off these Skanks, and the Iron Drakes honestly might be able to fend them off as well. The Thane in the front is holding. You can see my Dragonback Slayers. I've had to send into the infantry fight because he doesn't really have too many large threats left. You can see that the Skink Priest is gone, the Cold One Riders are gone. The Bolt Throwers really did a good job of cleaning up all those threats. So guys, I definitely recommend giving the Bolt Throwers a try in the DAWI versus Dino matchup. It might seem worth it to go like a cannon, but you can get 2 Bolt Throwers, so that gives you kind of a dual threat, right? So with a cannon, you can apply pretty good pressure to a single target. With 2 Bolt Throwers for the same cost, I think it's about the same cost. I think it's like 550 a piece, and the cannon's like 800, so it's almost, twice, 2 for 1, but yeah, they seemed really solid. I mean, pretty accurate. I was able to focus down the Revivification Crystal, so that's essentially like 1,100 gold that was shut down before the fighting even started from, 1,100 gold invested on my end, which was then able to generate additional value against his Lord. And you guys saw it was like point blank shooting at his Lord, which was pretty hilarious. But honestly, Ungrim in this front line, I had a very narrow front line, and these 3 troops were able to fend off 3 Saurus Warriors or 6 Saurus Warriors and also the Temple Guards when I was able to spread them out in that kind of formation. And then when he was able to get through with troops, I was able to kind of fend him off with some extra Miners and Auxiliary, and really use the Tormentor Sword to lock down his troops in the front. So I definitely like that build quite a bit. And yeah, that was actually the first time I've really used these bad boys on a ladder, and had a pretty good experience. I'm trying to think of other matchups in which they might be good. Maybe, I don't know, probably not against the Dark Elves, although if they do bring Malekith up in the air, it seems like it might be okay to bring 1 just to kind of focus them down. But the Organ Gun was huge. Even though it only got 49 kills, it was able to do massive damage against his Cold One Riders. One group of Cold One Riders on the flank, they got killed before they even got to me. So that was pretty big. So before the fighting even started, we got rid of 1,100, and I forget how much these guys cost. I know the regular ones, yeah, maybe 800-900 give or take. So yeah, 2,000 gold, gone out of the gates. But again, this build might only work on a map that's so open. I knew I was going into a desert map that was open field, so I could really reap the maximum benefit. But had that been a forested map, my opponent probably would have been able to kind of sneak through the forest and get really good engagements, and it would have been a much harder matchup. The Iron Drakes were okay. If anything, they were kind of like a magnet for aggro, so he was chasing them really aggressively. and I was able to kind of keep him healthy and get a little bit of value at the end of the game. So for his build, let's see. I do like Saurus Warriors. I mean, you do need a couple with shields. I mean, they're decent. Saurus Warriors, 1 Temple Guard, that's like usually what I bring. And then instead of like these 3 Saurus Warriors, what I would have recommended doing for my opponent was just cut those 3. Those are really expensive. For the cost of these 3, you could get like maybe like 8 or 9 groups of just skink cohorts and just swarm the DAWI back line. Get skink cohorts fighting their ballistas, their artillery, have them chasing Iron Drakes, have them chasing Thunderers. They'll be able to hold them down all day and really allow you to kind of do your work. That would be my only critique. I definitely like this little synergy here, and I think the Revivification Crystal is worth bringing, but on an open field map, you might want to be careful with that. So, very well played to my opponent, Rah Rah Rah. Look forward to seeing you get on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this DAWI showdown. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.